Hi, welcome to Eye on Aviation. Our topic today is the chain of command in the aviation industry. We will be doing three topics. 1. Illustrating the chain of command on board aircraft. 2. Explaining how cabin crew interact with the flight crew during routine flight operations. 3. Explaining how the chain of command system is followed during emergency drills. What is chain of command? It is a position of authority where the persons with higher position in the organization direct and control the activities of the lower members. The reason of this is to grant coordination of the different persons and group in the organization to carry out a specific task in order to achieve its goal. Example: when an employee reports to the manager, who reports to the senior manager, who then reports to the vice president, who reports to the CEO. The CEO makes final decision binding on everyone, followed by the vice president, and so on down the line. Let's illustrate the chain of command on board an aircraft. First, you have the captain. Second, first officer. Third, the cabin manager. And fourth, the cabin crew. Now, let's look at diagrams of the aircraft seat maps. Firstly, you have single-aisled aircraft seat map, and this is an example of EasyJet airline. 2. You have twin-aisled aircraft seat map, and this is an example of WestJet airline. 3. You have double-decked aircraft seat map, and this is an example of British Airways. 4. This is an example of a multiple class flight seat map, and this is the main deck of Lufthansa airline. This is the upper deck of the Lufthansa airline, which is the same multiple class flight seat map. Crew to passenger ratio. Staffing requirements for crew to passenger ratio are done by the amount of seats on board and not by the amount of passengers on the aircraft. FAA requires a minimum of one flight attendant per 50 seats. For example, the Southwest Airline Boeing B737 as an economy class. This airline has a total of 137 seats. Below are pictures showing 3 flight attendants that were assigned per 50 seats on the airline.
Explain how cabin crew interacts with flight crew during routine flight operations. Pre-departure communication. During pre-departure, cabin crew and flight crew interact by meeting to conduct a briefing before any pre-flight activities. This is done to have a discussion about such things as en route flight time, destination, and aim for the day, to check if everyone is aware of the safety and the security procedure and everyone is on the same page. They also use that to form groups and assign them to a particular task. Communication with flight crew during critical stages of flight. All cabin crew members are trained to understand and utilize the process of the stored cockpit rule. During this stage, both cabin and cockpit crew members are not allowed to communicate under no circumstances unless there is an emergency, else this may cause major confusion. Therefore, during an emergency, they communicate through intercom. Protocol for entrance into flight deck. Cabin crew member must avoid regular communication with the flight deck crew during times when they are likely to be busy with high workload. Most airlines use a signal for this flight crew to show the cabin crew members that it is safe to begin cabin service after takeoff. If a cabin crew member needs to gain access to the cockpit, he or she needs to call the captain on the interphone, then presses the hash key, then the buzzer sound will come on for 3 seconds, and then a green light on the code pad means that access is granted, and the amber light will come on when the door is open. Regular checks on flight crew. During a flight, there are normally cross-checks between flight crew and cabin crew for a regular checkup on flight crew. Cabin crew makes a call to all stations, and whichever flights pick up Then they will have to respond to tell whether everything is okay, whether they are following all procedures correctly or not.
Explain how the chain of command system is followed during emergency drills. Planned emergency situations and drills. Flight attendants may report that there's a strange odor in the back of the aircraft. The captain will tell the flight attendant to keep him or her noted if the situation gets worse. After a while, there's a fire right engine alert from the oral warning system. Captain will silence warning system and then tell first officer or flying pilot to manage the communication with air traffic control as captain start engine failure procedure and tell first officer to announce an emergency. Engine failure checklist may indicate that you have an bleed air leakage from your engine. Captain then begin a discussion with first officer and then may include flight dispatcher and maintenance coordinator in discussion to decide what to do. Maintenance coordinator then suggests shutting down engine and going to nearest airport. Dispatcher then suggests the nearest airport and gives information about things like favorable wind. Maintenance coordinator will then give a full crash, fire or rescue team on runway to make an inspection of aircraft and tell of impending danger. Captain and first officer then discuss and decide if it's a good idea to divert to the airport. Dispatcher will then give information about flight plan, current weather, fuel burn, etc. Captain then notify flight attendants of the situation and all the plans that were made. Captain will review procedures in case situation worsens. Further discussion will take place between flight crew, dispatch, and ATC about everything that will be done and about any special needs. Air traffic control then clears airspace, gives captain clearance for visual approach and clears captain to land. After a successful landing, captain will give flight attendants the go-ahead to give further procedures for departure.
Unplanned emergency situations. An announcement is made by the captain that there is an emergency. During this situation, all cabin crew members are required to indicate the passengers on board of the emergency, and they should carry out the following procedures. Keep their head down until aircraft has come to a complete stop. Make sure all passengers stay in a braced position. If called upon to evacuate, then each cabin crew member should proceed his or her primary exit and access outside conditions. If safe, open primary exit when shouting command and continue evacuation using commands which was identified.
Security incident. Disruptive passengers' behavior may cause from stress or being banned from smoking on board. There are passengers who are likely to be disruptive during a flight, and if fail to comply with the rules of the airline, then the cabin crew member will explain the situation to the captain. The captain will then advise the cabin crew member to monitor the disruptive passenger. If fail to do so, then the captain have to divert the flight to the nearest airport to remove passenger from aircraft, as it may cause conflict on board between the perpetrator and other passengers or a staff. Cabin and cockpit crew members should be properly trained to perform necessary procedures to deal with disruptive passengers on board.
Pilot incapacitation. During a flight, the co-pilot may realize that the pilot is not responding to any of his saying, weird movement of the aircraft happening, and he was slumped to his seat leaning forward, and even may attempt to awaken the pilot but no response. The co-pilot would then announce that there is a pilot incapacitation. The autopilot may disengage by co-pilot to take over full control of the aircraft, while the approach controller may take over as given the co-pilot instructions and directions back to the airport. Or if it is a long way in the journey, then divert to the nearest airport. During this time, the co-pilot will request the cabin crew member to come to the flight deck urgently. The co-pilot would then tell the cabin member that they have a pilot incapacitation, and the approach controller will still be giving the co-pilot instructions and may ask to declare emergency at some point, and the co-pilot will respond pilot incapacitation, and the approach controller will request emergency service to stand by. The cabin crew will then tell flight attendants about the problem, so they may be aware and giving passengers the necessary procedures to prepare for emergency landing due to pilot incapacitation. Approach controller may update the co-pilot when runway is clear and safe for landing, after which the co-pilot will make an announcement to prepare for landing. Flight attendants will then get the go-ahead to prepare passengers.
Cabin crew initiated emergency evacuations. This may occur exactly after takeoff or exactly after landing. This may be because of some critical issues that had happened. The captain will first make a public or passenger announcement saying,
Brace, brace, brace.
Cabin crew will know to prepare for an emergency evacuation and remain in their seats while they shout to passengers saying,
Brace,
Brace! Get your heads down! Brace!
400.
or emergency, emergency, bend over, get your heads down. After landing, for example in water, the cabin crew announced to passengers telling them to release seatbelts, grab life jackets, come this way and jump. This is when everyone is evacuating the aircraft and may also call ditching.
Stand back! Stand back! Stand back! Stand back!
This is the captain.
Evacuate all available exits.
This is the end of our session. Thank you for watching Eye on Aviation.